I'm John Foro at Book Expo America. I'm with Matthew Thomas, the author of We Are Not Ourselves, coming August 19th from Simon & Schuster. Glad you can join us.
Thanks for having me.
Could you tell us a little bit about your book? It's a large book. It's your first one. Les, a little bit what it's about and the process that you went through.
Of course, yeah. It is a story about an Irish-American family set in Queens initially. It largely focuses on a woman named Eileen who's born to Irish immigrant parents. And it follows her through the course of her life as we watch her develop ambitions for a life greater than the one she has from the beginning of her life and pursue a different course. She runs into obstacles at various points and overcomes some of them, and then eventually runs into something that she can't overcome. And the story becomes, in large part, the focus of how she handles this obstacle. Her marriage to her husband, Ed, is a focus of the book, and their relationship becomes the heart of the story. And in many ways, the way that she handles what happens to her husband, this calamitous event that occurs, reveals her character in the essence of it. I worked on the book for 10 years. I started the book at the end of my time at UC Irvine. I submitted it to workshop as the last submission I made after writing and submitting short stories. I finally worked up the courage to write this story because it involved some difficult emotional material, and I submitted the first portion of it, got some feedback, and then was off on my own in the real world. Writing as I taught as a high school teacher. Worked as a high school teacher for 8 years, the last 8 years, while I wrote.
Where did you draw inspiration for the book, for the material? Was it based on your own experience or your family's history?
It's rooted originally in an autobiographical impulse, but I think the book improved when I got away from that. It eventually became impossible for me to think of this book as anything but the novel that it wanted to be. The characters started asserting themselves and being individuals I couldn't entirely control. So it quickly got away from autobiography. But the emotional reality of the story certainly extends from my experiences. My father in particular is an inspiration for Ed in what happened to my father. And in fact, I started writing this book after he died. A year later, I found the courage to begin it. So I would say the roots of it are in autobiography, but the aspect of it being a novel emerged rather quickly in the process.
Did you have any literary heroes or any model that you wanted to emulate, or? A
few, yeah. 100 Years of Solitude was certainly in the back of my mind as I was writing this, in the intergenerational aspect of it, and in the way he conveys so much about the inheritance of traits and the playing out unconsciously of themes from one generation to the next in a family. The scope of that book was something I admired and I wanted to try to write toward. Gatsby was always on my mind as well for a lot of the thematic content in that book. And Mrs. Bridge was another book that gave me a model for how to write with short chapters and manipulate short chapters in a larger whole. So I would say those are the three big ones for me.
So this is your first book, and presumably your first book expo.
It is, yeah.
What has been your experience? There's a lot of hype building around it. Has it been thrilling? It's
been a big thrill. Yeah, the biggest thrill for me was meeting the fellow panelists on the Buzz panel. I got to chat with them for a few minutes beforehand, and it was exciting because everybody had a similar experience in a sense. There was a shared experience of excitement and enthusiasm for what was going on, and gratitude to be here. And it was fun to be a part of a group of people who are potentially going to make a mark and it was exciting to think about reading their books. It's also amazing to be here because it's such an unbelievably huge event. It's totally unnavigably huge, so I don't know how anybody really... It's like the Metropolitan Museum of Art. You can't take it all in at once. It's why it's probably 4 days. But it's a big thrill to be here.
All right. Well, good luck with the book.
Thank you.
It's called We Are Not Ourselves. It's out August 19th. Thanks.
Thank you.